Hi everybody, it's Janet and welcome back to my channel. I'm super excited today because I'm going to show you something I ordered. What is it? Well, as you can see, it's a couple of rulers. Not too exciting for most people, right? But you know, to us crafters, these things make us happy. So what is different about this? First of all, this is from My Sweet Petunia. It's a new product of theirs. And it's intriguing. It intrigued me enough to actually spend the money to try it. I am a huge tools person, so I do spend a lot of time looking at the newest and greatest tools. Some things I bite on, some things I don't. Of course, some things turn out to be a total bust, but over time you get to be a little smarter about these things, and I thought that this had enough going for it that it was worth giving it a serious try. So this is the set. You can't buy them singly. You can only buy them as a set, and this is what they look like. Now the biggest feature here is that there is a slit in the middle, and that is to use for cutting purposes. This is called the cut align, and it has to do with that slot in the center. The main purpose of this is to cut straight sentiments out of paper that you have stamped, and you can also use it for matting. And either way you can get a great result with this. I've been practicing a little bit today, and I really got quite good at it, and I'm very happy with how it works. Now let's talk about the Tim Holtz ruler for a second, because this is my all-time favorite ruler. I won't be replacing my Tim Holtz with this system because they're for different things. Although I may use these more often than I do this now. We'll see how that goes. But let me talk about the pros and cons that I notice about these two different rulers, just so that I can be as straight up about it as possible. Each one does have pros and cons against the other. There is not one that I would say is hands down absolutely better than the other. They have different uses, so they are different, even though they're both rulers. So let's talk about the pros of Sweet Petunia compared. Well, the obvious first pro is that it has the slot, and you see that the knife goes through that slot and you use it to cut with. And this is to help you align by using the measurements and getting a straight cut so that you can get a nice even sentiment. In other words, something like this, where the edges of the sentiment are nice and even. Now you can do that with your paper cutter, you can do that with Tim Holtz, you can do that with lots of things, but the reason that I thought this was really worthy of giving it a try is that because when I use my Tim Holtz and I'm using my knife, I will often travel that knife. Like, I guess I twist it or something, because the end result is rarely completely straight. And I like to use my craft knife for especially smaller things rather than getting, you know, putting it in the big cutter and all that. And some things when they're tiny just are a lot easier to use, just the old-fashioned craft knife. So anyway, that is really the main innovation that caught my attention. Now let's look at this compared to the Tim Holtz. Alright, so another pro versus the Tim Holtz to me is that you have 1/16 inch markings here as well as 1/8. Tim Holtz only has 1/8 markings, which generally is fine, but I have wished for 1/16 marks from time to time. It's also a wider ruler. This is a full 2 inches wide. This is 1.5 inches wide. The slit is right in the center, so on this side you can count on there being 1 inch, and on this side 1 inch. And so not only do you have the 1/8 inch marks over here clearly marked, you have 1/16 marks here by the first 3 lines. Then there's tick marks across the rest of the lines here, but then also those 1/16 lines is exactly 1/4 inch. This block is 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch equals 1 inch, right? Whereas here you're going to find the 1/8 blocks make 1 inch, and you can't really too easily tell which is 1/2 inch versus 1 inch on these 1/16. But if you need that, you've got it over here. So that makes it have an advantage, I think. The other thing, because it's wider, when you're trying to square things, you've got a longer line to use here, and you've got lots of lines here to help square up a piece of paper, much like you would use a T square, right? You have a horizontal and a vertical line to square things up with, and the wider version makes that easier and more effective. Also, if you have a multi-line sentiment, they can get, you know, fairly thick. This will cover the whole thing. It's just a little bit easier to work with for that purpose than this is. Another pro is that it's thicker. Let's see if I can give you a shot of this. Sweet Petunia is a lot thicker. It's over 1/8 inch. It's a little over 1/8 inch. The Tim Holtz is exactly 1/8 inch. So it's probably like 3/16. It would be my guess for the Sweet Petunia, and exactly 1/8 for the Tim Holtz. Not a big thing, but it gives it a more substantial feel, and I like that about it. It's just a personal preference. It's not really a big deal at all. Another pro that I like about Sweet Petunia, again, let's hold this up, and the Tim Holtz, is the zero centering. The zero centering mark exists on both of these. On Tim Holtz, it's on the opposite side of the ruler of the regular 1-inch marks, going from lowest number to highest number. On Sweet Petunia, the zero is on the same side as the measurements going from lowest to highest. And then on each side you have a 1, 2, 3, and over here you have 1, 2, 3. So you can see all that on one layout of your ruler. If you want to do that with Tim Holtz, you can, but it takes a little more mental juice to realize, oh, the 7 is really a 1, the 8's a 2, the 9's a 3, or you flip it over. But then you lose track of, well, how many inches is this whole thing? Again, not always used, but I have found that to be kind of an annoyance at different times. You know, again, this is my personal preference. I'm not saying it's yours, but for me, I like that it's all on the top like that. I appreciate that. Okay, so let's talk about cons of Sweet Petunia compared to Tim Holtz. For one thing, 12-inch ruler, can't go wrong, right? Why do we have this 8-incher? I don't get it. Yeah, I know for card making you don't necessarily need a full like 12-inch ruler, but it's not that inconvenient. I would much have preferred this to be 10 inches than 8 inches. I find it a bit annoying that my slit only goes from 1 inch to 6 inches on this. So that means, you know, you can't get a full 6-inch cut. You're getting more like 5.5 at best. I find that annoying. So if I have to cut it more than 5.5 inches about, I've got to move to this much larger one. So I would say that's definitely a con. The other con is this is nice and black. You can see this really well. This is pink. It's just not as visible. I understand pink petunia and all that, but it is just not as bold as the black. I wish it were in black. Okay? Another biggie for me is the Tim Holtz ruler has a hole cut in it so you can hang it. Neither one of these have holes. So in a space like mine where storage is really, really important and I don't have a lot, having to deal with these two rulers now and having no way to hang them easily anyway without jury rigging something is a definite con in my scrap space. I just don't have room for things that can just sit there and do nothing. They need to be off of my desk as much as possible when I'm not using them. So I really wish that it did have that. The other con is Sweet Petunia's rulers have no metal edging. So to do cuts against here is probably going to start cutting up this pretty good. But keep in mind, that's not really what this tool is meant for. So it's a con if you're going to try to use this for your everyday ruler. This is really specific for cutting sentiments and mats. This one, of course, you have the metal ruler and you can use it to cut with, and it's not going to start bothering your acrylic. So that's definitely a con compared to the Sweet Petunia to Tim Holtz's ruler. The other con is, although it's not really for me, but it could be for you. The Tim Holtz ruler has the holes drilled in it, and I think these were meant so that you could punch and then use them for sewing. I've never used it for that. I've never even attempted to try to use it for that. So for me it's not a con, but for you it may be if you're used to using a feature of this ruler. That does not, again, exist at all in any form with this ruler. So that's a comparison against the Tim Holtz. Now you may be somebody who uses either your guillotine or your straight edge cutter for cutting sentiments straight. I commend you, because I've tried to do that over the years and I really haven't had great luck getting nice straight lines. Mainly because I end up working with small pieces of paper, and the smaller they get, like that little bit tiny sentiment that's 2 inches by 3 inches, it gets hard for me to control it in my paper cutter. And also my particular paper cutter doesn't have a lot of, great lines to work with in terms of 1/16 of an inch and that sort of thing like this does. So again, this really interested me, and I think it'll be a good fit for me and my crafting style. Okay, let's move on now. I'm going to show you a few tips and tricks for using the Sweet Petunia and tell you a few things that I've learned, and maybe you'll determine if it's something you want to try as well. Okay, I'm back with a couple sentiments that I've stamped, and I tried very hard not to cut them straight. My piece of paper is not particularly straight either. I thought this would be a good sample of how to cut and use the My Sweet Petunia. So I want to start with this one. It's a little bit easier because it's block lettering as opposed to this one that is cursive, but it's challenging. Why is it challenging a little bit? Because it's not perfectly even on the sides. The bottom is hard to measure for straightness based on the text because you've got the G's which come down into white space, but they're kind of in the middle. So it's hard. If you use those bottom G's to measure, you can easily get them kittywampus and not have a straight line. So I'm going to show you how I am dealing with this. I'm going to use the shorter one for the most part, but I may switch to the longer one here and there. I can't guarantee what's going to happen because this is live, baby. You never know. Okay, but so I'm going to start, and I'm going to use, let me show you here. I'm going to use the 1/8 mark, which is right here. I prefer 1/16 actually, but the first 1/16 line is really hard for you guys to see in this video, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to use this 1/8, the first 1/8 mark away from the slit. So we'll have a 1/8 inch edge around my sentiment. So here it is. I know I have a top of an I to work with and a top of a D, so that's convenient. I've got something on each side of that I can work with. In most sentiments you will find enough to go on for the top line, and always start on the top line. It's the easiest line to cut first. I highly recommend that because it's always going to be a little easier than doing the bottom line first. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lay out my ruler, and this is a cutting board here, or cutting pad. I'm going to find that 1/8 of an inch mark right there on the top of the I and the top of my D. Now I'm ready to cut. I'm going to insert my knife, and I'm going to go fairly slow and with medium pressure. I'm going to make multiple lines, or cuts, sorry. And I'm going to press slightly to my left with my blade to make sure I'm on the left edge. When I feel pretty confident I've gotten through, I will take it away. So this way I've got myself a very clean cut edge. Great. Now it looks very crooked, doesn't it? But it's because my sentiment is crooked. But I assure you that is a straight line. And now that I have one straight line, I can use that straight line to do straight lines for the other three. Let me demonstrate what I mean. Alright, so on this one, on this side, the L is the farthest letter. And you know what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to cut this out of the way here so that I don't end up cutting across this one. Alright, sorry about that. Like I said, it's live, right? Alright, so anyway, This is the border I've really got to be concerned with the L. But that one L, how can I be straight on that? The simple reason is that you have kind of a built-in straight edge here with this ruler. So first of all, I'm lining up that L against that 1/8 inch mark, and then I'm looking for a solid line here. And if my L matches up to the L in the sentiment and is straight on my straight line here, I've essentially created like a T, and I know that what I'm cutting here is going to exactly be correct. All right. Okay, so now I've got two straight edges. It's looking pretty good. I'm going to do the other side the same way. I have to turn it this way because that's where my straight edge is. I'm finding that period there on the either, and I'm just verifying with my line, the line that goes all the way across, that it matches with the straight line of the top of my sentiment. And so that is how you can create a nice straight line even though you have just a tiny little thing like that period to use as a guide to cut around your sentiment. Alright, so 3 lines or 3 cuts done. We just have the last cut to do, and the last cut in my view is the hardest one. But with this ruler system it's not too bad. Just like we did on the other side, or on the sides, you can use that G, put this down, find your straight line on this edge because we know that is straight, and then line up the 1/8 of an inch to the bottom of the G's, there in the center of your sentiment, or close to the center of the sentiment. Press down, make a couple lines, and now we have a nice sentiment with 1/8 of an inch all the way around. Doesn't it look great? The lines are straight. I'm very pleased with that. And I think that's a good example of a somewhat difficult sentiment. All right, let's look at the next one. This is one of my favorite things, not my circus, not my monkey. And it is very crooked on this piece of paper. And I've cut a crooked line here at the top. So what do we do with this? Again, I start with the top. Now I was looking at this and I actually measured it just to be sure, but the top of that T and this I, the dot over the I, are the same height, or very, very close to the same height. And I find this with most sentiments, that even if it's cursive or if it's block or whatever it is, the top of your highest letter and a period over, or not a period, but a dot over an I is generally about the same height. Close enough anyway to work with it. So again, I always try to start with the top of my sentiment. I'm going to use this again. This time all I have to work with is my ruler, the 1/8 inch, and I'm going to put the top of that T at my 1/8 inch, and then I'm going to scooch this so that the top of that I is also on the 1/8 inch, and I'll keep, jiggling that around a little bit until I feel like they're both the same. And here is where I run into problems with this shorter ruler that I don't like. So I didn't pay attention to where I put this ruler, and my slot is too short. I really have to move this up so that I have a full slot across this piece. And then I've got to do it again. Mark the top of the T, mark the top of the I. I'm just being real with you guys here. I found that to be, I guess, something you'll get used to with time and make sure you do all the time, but when you're first starting out, I have done that several times already today, is made that mistake of not giving myself the full slotted room. Alright, enough whining, okay? Alright, so I've got that done. Now I'm going to do the sides, and again, you're going to see which side comes out the most. In this case it is the N, but I have this straight line to work with. It's my lifesaver because now I just, I got to turn it around. I got to put this This end has to match the 1/8 mark, and then I need to straighten it with the solid line. See this solid line that's going through here? I make sure that that aligns to the straight edge of that paper, and then my N is in the 1/8 inch mark, and it's ready to cut. Now obviously it's taking me longer to do this because I'm talking and showing. When you're doing this, it goes pretty quick. Alright, so we're going to do the other side. Again, the S, it comes out the farthest. We want the 1/8 edge from there. So using my straight line again, I'm putting that 1/8 mark against the end of the S, and then I'm looking for my straight line based on this edge here. So yeah, I have to twist it to make it straight. So you see how this straight line here matches the top edge of my paper. That's the trick when you're trying to do something based on just something to go on as that edge of that one letter. Okay, so we got 3 sides. Now we just need to do the bottom. Now in this case it's pretty easy because the Y's are separated and they're the same height. So really simple. But the same principle applies. I'm going to make sure those 2 loopy Y's are at the 1/8 mark. I'm going to move this down so that I make sure that my ruler line here matches up, and we should be good to go. Unfortunately, I didn't quite get through there. I thought I felt maybe that I hadn't, but I can survive through that. And there you go. Once again, nice, perfect 1/8 edging. Can't complain. Alright, well then let's look quick at how you can use this for matting. This is an old trick. In fact, I have bought different rulers over time that are supposed to be just for matting. I've bought all kinds of cutting tools over the years for that. I'm just slapping it on there. So I just trimmed this off on the edge. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut a 1/8 border around here. Super simple. Oops, got to turn it the other way, sorry. Now all I need to do is match up my 1/8 line to the white paper in this case and cut. Turn it around, match that 1/8 line edge up. In this case I don't have to use the bottom lines for anything. It's not like I need a T-level or T-square. Yeah, my knife is getting a little dull. Sorry about that, guys. That is not the Sweet Petunia's fault. Alright, so then we'll do that on this side. Anyway, I was saying, I think, before I stopped there, that I only have to pay attention to the edge of my white sentiment because we already know that's perfectly straight. That's my guide, and that's what I'm using to make sure that my mat is going to be perfectly 1/8 of an inch all the way down my sentiment. Make sure I got through there. Darn it, guys. Yeah, I definitely need a sharper blade, I think. But in any case, we got through it. So there you can see how nice that turned out. Okay, well thank you for joining me here today. I so appreciate your time. It's so nice to be here with you as well. I hope that this gave you enough exposure to the cut-align system from My Sweet Petunia to decide if it's something that you would like to invest in or not. And it's just as valuable for those who decide, nope, I don't want it, as it is for those who say, yep, I do want it. Either way, I hope it helps you make a decision. Alright, that'll do it. Like I said, I will not probably be responding to your comments at the time that this is posted because I'm doing it ahead. I will be out of town and in a place without internet, so you won't see me respond. It's not because I don't want to, I just can't see it yet. So don't be put off by that, please. I will get back to you. I look forward to your comments and to your observations as well. Let's just be kind to each other and respectful. That's all I ask. All right, take care. We'll see you soon.
Well, once again, thank you for joining me here today. I really appreciate you visiting, and I've put up here the link to subscribe to my channel and also to a couple more videos that I think you might be interested in seeing if you like this one. So I hope to see you back soon, but until then, keep crafting. Bye!